Hello everybody. Sorry I've not got this to you sooner. It's been quite an interesting process trying to adapt to the new teaching method. One second, let me just move that across. Right, so the poster session. I know I was supposed to deliver it to you a week ago. I've just been caught up with, like as I said, trying to adapt. So, what I want to do today then is I'm going to take you through the particular poster method. Now, for me, I'm going to use two different tools. The first one I'm going to use is Publisher. Now, I know you've been shown to use this on PowerPoint. That's perfectly fine. Not a problem at all. The elements of what we're doing is still going to sit in the same format. It still resides in the same issues. So, what we'll do is move forward. So I'm going to go to, first I'm going to open up my main tool, my weapon of choice if you will. I'm going to go to, let's have a look. I'm going to come down and I'm going to go to Publisher. Now again, if you're using anything else, it doesn't really matter. I prefer Publisher just because I personally find I have more control over when I'm using Publisher. What I'll do is I'm going to use a blank portrait first. I'm going to start with an A4 and then I'm going to change things over. And then we'll get into the process of actually making the poster up. Now in here, the thing is with Publisher, it is designed to actually create banners, posters, things like that. So what we're going to do is, first things first, I just want to review my page size. So where is it? Page design. I'm going to go sizing. And I'm going to come down to more present page sizes. And in here what I have is I have different sets of all different things. You can even go to greeting cards, envelopes. You can make envelopes, specific emails. If you want to make, you know, when everybody had to email about the particular things at the university, about printing and things, you can actually create a top layer for the email here. So it will look a certain way. You can put your picture on there if you wish, whatever. Now, I'm going to go posters. Now on here, I can choose particular types, sizes, everything that's important, so I can go A2. Now, Lieben, I think, if I'm right, I am right, I'm pretty sure I'm right. Lieben has actually requested A2, but I can go A4, I can go A1, I can go banners, I can go ISO standard types, I can go all different types, but I'll just go with standard A2. It'd be great for this anyway. So we're going to jump straight into it. So, the first things first, setting out your positions of how things pretty much are executed. Now, what I thought I'd do is I'm going to use actually some work I have been genuinely working on. So I'll show you what I'm working on. This is to do with the exoskeleton that I've been doing, and let me just get. So this is the typical stuff. This is the things I've got, and in the paper it seems to flow really nicely, So what I want to do is, first things first, I want to see my introduction. This is my introduction, so I'm on 4 pages of introduction. So first things first, I want to decide how my reader is going to actually read from this. I want to know how they're going to interface with it. There's a few things I want to choose, so 2 seconds. One thing you should always keep in mind is someone's going to interface with it, and you need to decide how someone's going to actually flow to it. So for example, I could start with a big old title here and then flow down and follow a particular flow of this poster. What I've really got to decide is how it's going to be constructed and how people are going to interface with it. I personally tend to go with the academic execution. So let me just see if I can find a quick example. I'll just go poster academic. And it's just because this is the norm. If anybody believes that you're never going to need to use this again, you would be surprised. You would be very surprised. I said the same thing many years. So if I just scroll this across, see this flow here. Now what's beautiful with this is we have the title, we have a particular, just an overview with it, we have an introduction to it. Now, I mean, arguably, an element of this is a little bit too much text. Maybe not, maybe there is, who knows. But what we'll do, I mean, the introduction 4 lines. I think 4 lines is the maximum that you can really go for. So what I'll do with this is I'm going to choose a template. It's going to make my life easier. Wow, what is that? I'm not actually after any of that for sure. I'm going to come back. Let's see what we got. Newsletter. Now with this, I can actually decide how these things are going to be laid out. It will make life a little bit easier for me. I mean, saying that, these aren't very much of what I'm really after. With the keep in mind that what people will do. Yeah, sorry, I'm just all over the shop at the minute. Is that the right one? Where are we at here? That's the right one. That's the right one. Let me just check. That's the right one. So keep in mind, people will read from left to right and top to bottom. So you can split into 2, split into 3. Now I would always, personally for me, I would always split into 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to break this into 3 separate sections. So I'm going to go insert, I'm going to go shape, and I'm going to go text box. So first things first, I'm just going to draw my particular point into there, and I'm going to take it to the border. Oh, come on, you swine. Can I not get that blasted thing to snap into my border? There we go. So, just snap that into there and that. Oh, come on, there we go. And then snap that into there. This is in essence going to be what will be my title. I'm going to have to obviously rejig things around. Just going to bring that up slightly and just to give me where that initial title space will be. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that in again. I'm going to bring that down because that's now sitting there. And what I'm actually wanting to do is now I'm going to bring this to the middle. If I can even track that middle. And I'm told you do have a function now in here called 2-page spread, which is really useful if it's there. So let's have a look. I'm not sure with that. So I'll put in my guidelines anyway. I'm going to put that onto there. Now what this is going to do is just give me where my borders need to sit, and these are really useful because what you can see is it's actually trying to snap itself to where each corner will be. So I'm going to bring that across. Whoops. God, I'm wrecking this big time. There we go, like that. Then that will snap here. So now I have a particular box I can interface with here, which I thought was copied, which apparently is not. So now I'll drag that across. Let's try that. Let's snap that into there. So now I have here, now I have here. And you'll see here, this is really good. Can I bring them rules out? No, there's only one particular. So you'll see this here, this is really good. This is why I do quite like Publisher, because now I've got my particular text boxes that I want to actually populate. So that actually gets us back on track a little bit. So first things first, I'm interested in trying to build a bit of a poster quickly, a poster based on what I've been doing here. Now, if we start to really look at all this, I'll just copy. I'm going to copy. Let's say this is the pieces that I'm interested in. So I'm going to bring that across, and I'm going to come here and paste. Right. So this is fantastic. I'm going to zoom it in. Right, so there's a few things about this. If I zoom this back, imagine that you're 6 feet away from there. A good rule of thumb with this is that it's a little bit too small. So first things first, I'm going to just start to look at sizing. A good rule of thumb with this is, well, a good rule with this is imagine you're 6 feet. If you cannot see anything at 6 feet, your word sizing is too small. I would always recommend a size of 24 or more. Never go smaller than 24. 24 is pretty good, but this is for everything. Don't think that that would hold you in for the title, so this will be everything. So if I bring that to 24, what we've now got is a massive amount of text from something that was relatively small originally. So the issue that we got is we need to take this text and we need to make it a bit more efficient. So I'm going to bring this out. You can see now where it's going. I'm naturally not going to write it just because I'm trying to go through this relatively quick. So, over the past decades, development of wearable robot structures for replacement limbs and rehabilitation has received attention from many research and developers. That is my introduction. Granted, I may want to redrig, may want to rechange, may want to re-examine. You'll notice as well here there is a massive inconsistency, and that is I've got Calibri and I've got Times Roman. I would recommend only ever staying with one at a push 2. So I'm going to change that to Times Roman. Let me just go Times. And for the introduction, you can, if you wish, go something like Arial. What these do is by putting these onto here, it really allows it to almost be definitively different, if you know what I mean. So you've got the introductions are all cast to 1, and you've got the actual introduction, and you've got the actual text itself, which is cast more to Times Roman. And this really gives that contrast. This is really nice because you look and you go, right, there's your introduction, and there's the intro to it. Again, avoid mass levels of text. Avoid overdoing it with as much text as you can find. Avoid doing all that because people will just look and they will get bored. You're going to have them stood there for a maximum of 5 to 6 minutes. If you can keep them enticed, it will really drag them in. As I said, when you're telling your story, make sure this flows. So, for example, if I'm just going to put in some arrows just to give you an idea of what I mean. If let's just draw an arrow like that. I'm going to make this stupid for the minute, just to show you what I mean. Let's make this jumbo size. Let's go like that. And right, so if you imagine, let's say your text goes from there and then goes, I don't know, down here, and then goes here, then goes back over here, and then my point is you've got to think of what's the best way to tell your story and to keep them. Now, as I said, keep in mind that people will always read left to right, top to bottom. So you're going to guarantee that your starting point is going to be here, 100% going to be here. So don't put results here. When it's actually flowing through, you choose your particular direction. You can, if you wish, choose to go round. Now, if you do choose to go round, so like this is what I mean. If you do choose to go round, make sure that you can actually consistently show why it goes round. It's not something that I would personally recommend. I have seen it done a couple of times. It is, you know, it takes a lot of messing around to get it right, but once it's right, it does work. But I would always recommend that you flow from left to the bottom and then top to the bottom. But with that process, obviously flowing to that bottom and then moving upwards. So moving back over here. So moving back to here, like that. That is often the best. That is the perfect way of doing it. It's how people naturally read. And also, if I put my text, let's say I put my text central, people look and it frustrates people. Do not do it. Choose particular ways. You can either do totally justified, where you're going left to right, and it's symmetrical. You can do justification right. I wouldn't recommend. Oh no! Don't listen to me. You can't do justification right. You can do fully justified or left justified, as people read from left to right. If you do right justification on this, it will get people incredibly frustrated, because they'll just think it's backwards, and that is not what you're wanting to send. You wanted to send a message of professionalism. So keep that in mind. Right. My phone's going mad. Right. So when you're telling the story, as I said, go from top to bottom. I've made some notes myself, that's all, just to remind myself of things that I don't want to forget. The other thing is as well, is we have lots of elements here, and you'll notice that in my intro, where is my paper gone? You notice in my intro, it goes on for quite a bit, and there is key things about it. Like for me, the rows, the exoskeleton rows, that is a key sort of thing that's in there. So what I might want to do, if I want to just add a few more bits onto it, I might just say, so let me just come back to here and then just say key research is seen as, oh no, key research in this area. And then what I can do with that is I can put on bullet points, and I could say the rows exoskeleton. I'd obviously need to give some reference to it, 100% need to give reference to it, but this is just to show you what I mean. Try to stay with bullet points if you're going to end up with lots of text that you really do need to spell out in your work. Whatever you do, do not put tons and tons of text in there. So if you can, be concise, get rid of as much as you can, and it's important that people don't get bored of what you're doing. You want to drag them in, you want to entice them in. Right, another thing to keep in mind as you're going through, typically you may be a little bit of afraid of not filling in particular areas with text, with information. Now, don't fill in every single millimetre of your poster. When you fill in every single millimetre of your poster, the poster looks cluttered, and it just drags, it ends up frustrating people more because they have to spend more time reading about your poster and what you've done than anything else. So let's say then whoops, what I'm actually going to do now is so I'm going to say setup. I'm just giving it particular tiles. It's nothing in stone for this. So I'm going to go say setup. Now with this again, if you go through the work that I've done here, what I'm trying to really show here is this is muscles and key points. Now this influenced our design. So this for me is a key thing about what we've been doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to copy that image and paste it in. When you paste your images, if you put any image in there, make sure as ever that you reference, that you talk about what it is, what it's for, and you make sure that you figure that you add. So, whoops. I'm gonna go because I'm telling insert. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go draw a text box. So I'm going to draw a text box in to there, and I'm just going to call that figure 1. Again, I'm in times, and don't forget that 24. So we've got this figure 1. And you see there, I snapped on them both. I'm going to group, and now I can move this where I'm feel fit. I'm going to move that down a little bit. Now this is purely because, again, in my text, I want really one sentence, no more than one sentence. So what I'll do is I'll drag in. Keep in mind the famous saying of picture paints 1,000 words, just because it really does. It really does. Wherever I can, I want to be concise. So I'm using one sentence here, and in order to consider the new type of assistance, the human body muscle. Wow, I just spotted that myself. Muscle groups were considered. And I'll push that up to there, and that in itself then allows people to look and go, right, okay, what the hell is he talking about? And that allows people then to really engage with me, and that prompts discussion. The most important thing about this is that you get people to really discuss what it is that you're talking about. So if you look here, muscle groups were considered, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to drop on a sneaky little reference and say figure 1. And that really brings in, I mean, I'm going to go arguments. Well, no, I'm not. Whoa. And that brings in the figure. Make sure that no matter what you do, that you always bring it in where it needs to be. So what I'll do here is, now order. I was just trying to get it in line. Never mind. I'm not going to get it in line. I'm going to bring that down, and then, I don't know, bring it up a little bit there. Something like that. And now, any key elements that drop out of this, I'm going to use bullet points. So, what I want to do from here is I need to bring in this data. Now, this data was not constructed by me. It's some that I've pulled from research papers, and this data is key about what I'm doing. So then what I want to do is I want to just bring in extra things with it. Now a table would be really useful. So I think with this, if I copy the whole table itself, copy that in, and then paste it in, it's a little bit big. So if I just look at how big if I look at how big it's meant to be, so that's 24. With that, I can bring that, get rid of that, and just going to get rid of that. Now you'll see that I've slimmed all that down, and I'm going to drop max and minimum. I'm going to bring this across, and this across. Still within that border, still within that border. So get rid of my there we go. Oh, damn it, look at that. Still just needs to be within the remit of the actual border. If it's not, it doesn't actually serve as it should. Now that's within the remit, so it's now sitting correctly. Other thing to keep in mind is you see how I've got table there. This is incorrect. Do not make this ultimate mistake. I'm going to bring that up to 24. In fact, on my last one I had this set to 22, which is a little bit outside the rule, but this is only just a reference to what I'm going to do. And this is coming way at the wrong position. So what I actually want to do is see if I can move you. So I'll come on to here, bring that down. Bring that back up a little bit. And that now is starting to look a little bit more like I was after. Still not quite happy with that. I mean, arguably you can actually make text in tables smaller, only by one tab though. So, but everything must be consistent. So if you notice, my times here is smaller, and then with that I may put on some bullet points of because I'd have to just offer a sentence with that, and I could say test sample from children where did I get them? Let's have a look. Children between 8 and 11. Test sample children between 8 to 11 years. Wherever I can, I want to just stay with this. So let's have a look. Test sample. Sample from children. No, children. Children's see, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to prioritize things that were actually in this whole thing here. Oh, there were 4 to 13. So it's 4 to 13 actually. So you've got 4 to 13. And what I'm trying to do is just keep sure that some of the important elements about this weren't lost. So, like I said, I've copied in these pieces, but what I've essentially got to try and do is take this text that I've done here and actually convert it into bullet points, but not put it so it's just random and nobody really knows what they're looking at. As I said before, don't be too afraid to making your text there we go. Yeah, don't be too afraid to having space on your space on the actual poster, just because. Oh, that's a shambles. Look at that. That's actually came out of its locked-in element. Right, so we'll come back. That's okay. That's okay. So all I'm going to do now is just move things around. Bring that down a little bit. That's there. I'm going to bring that. Oh, bring that down. Bring that down a little bit more. Never be sure. I mean, if we're staying by the justification rule, that is roughly how I want it to be. Now, another thing to keep in mind is your colours. So if I come in, let's have a look. So let's say, for argument's sake, that now I've met everything that I wanted to do. That is the maximum that you're going to get for introduction of your setup. Now I could drop in key elements of theory. Now you can see now that it is very, very, very vague. Very vague. I mean, here you may want to put in some text as well. What I like to do is, and personally for me, this is just me, what I like to do is just mark out particular points, what needs to be done. So on here, for example, I normally mark that up and then highlight that out. So, or just change the colour so I can identify it straight away if that's what I need to add in. Anyway, yeah, so let's say I go on to theory. Now, the word that's on this looks more at human body interface. So that's my sample. That's my method straight across. And here I may even just want to put in theory based classic physics. Now, I know what you're thinking. That promotes so many questions. It does promote questions, but this is what you want. You want people to ask you questions. You want people to want to know what you did, because a lot of the time people won't be interested at all about what you did. They won't really want to know exactly what you did. What you want to do is get them to be enticed, to be really, really keen to know what the thing is about. So what I'll do is I'm just going to add another text box. So I'm going to insert, and I'm going to do shapes. I'll do a text box, and I'm going to locate it to the bottom of here again. If you remember, this is what I did earlier. Here's what I did earlier. and I'm going to copy that, and all I'm going to do is paste that in straight away. With this, I'm going to struggle to actually bring in text to actually drag it in, but it is still very important that I do that. You see there where it's going red, it's telling me the size that you've chosen is way too small. So we'll bring that out a little bit. And I'm going to group it like that. So now I can move it, and it's my first initial point. Oops, whoops, whoops. And it's my first stop right there. Now what you can see is I'm starting to get a bit cluttered. Well, not really. I'm still very basics on here. I could do with figuring out perhaps not putting text there, bringing that up a little bit. Oops, I'll bring that down to there. I've got a little bit of space there, and then with this, what I can do is I can drop in any particular theory onto it. So this one, if anybody's noticed this one is obviously a class 1 lever. And again, I've just pulled that theory straight from my work that I've been working on. And then what we're starting to get is a nice overview. It is going to need fine tuning. What I'll do as well is, now the issue is I have not even managed to get in any drawings, to not show any drawings. Now the question is does this need to be removed? Possibly yes. Could this, so if you look here, in order to consider the human body, the muscles were considered, could this be put into bullet points? I would guess yes, but for the minute what I'll do is I will stay with what I'm doing, and then come back and revisit that. So the story with this is, you see where these key points sit. These key points now sit at the same position as what I've shown. So if I copy that and then go back in here, and I'm going to paste in my drawings on here. Now don't be afraid at these points if you want to start generating drawings and you want to actually change things. Now what I could do is actually overlay this completely. I know what some of you will be thinking, my god, them drawings are amazing, where did he get them from? I know, I've only got 2 hands. Right, so if I drag this out, I want to show you this because some of you won't be aware. Sadly, this will only work if you have any, if you have a CAD system. So I'm going to bring in SolidWorks and I'm going to show you how this is done. If any of you want to know further about how to make these types of drawings, please let me know. I'm glad to help. Now, Visio, you do have access to it. It is on Citrix. This is golden for making drawings. Now you can use some of the templates. I always use blank drawings, and then this brings it in to here. Now when you generate drawing sets, save it, and then you can always come back to it. Now basing it on the stuff that I've been doing here, I'm going to choose a component and then I'm going to output it. Now what I would not recommend, ever recommend, is doing a cheesy, in fact, let's take this. This is just one that this is the spine segment I was working on. Now if I do this, and then if I just drop the arms, and then if I take a screenshot of that, in fact let's take a screenshot of that, because what I'm going to do is we're going to compare which one looks better. So I'm going to paste that in, and that is around 100% of stuff that I've seen before. They don't look good. They don't look professional. They look a bit naff. So let's do this a little bit more professional. So let's go. I'm going to go new. I'm going to make a drawing of the part. So I'm going to go drawing. It doesn't matter what size I stay with this. So I'm going to go with present view. So current view here. Drag that in. Right. And then just to get more detail out of it, I'm going to make it even bigger. Oh. I'm going to make it, oh my god. Let's make it. There we go. That's what we're after. So I'm going to make it even bigger. And that is it. That's all I want for the minute. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to File, Save As. And I'm going to put it out as a DWG drawing on the desktop. Right. Now let me introduce you to the miracles that is Visio. So back into Visio, and what I'm going to do is insert CAD drawing, go onto my desktop, there's my test spine, and then OK. Click OK. And then what I'll do is if I zoom out, you'll see it's actually brought in even the template. We actually don't want the template. So I'm going to go CAD drawing and convert. I'm going to convert everything. Give it a minute. And if I now highlight this, I'm going to delete out the template. Do not want this template. I'm going to move our questionable display. I'm going to put that onto there and I'm going to bring that down. Bring that down. Push it across. Boom. Look at that. So just match the size. I mean, what you could do if you wanted, you could highlight the two over the top of each other. You could line them up. I mean, that would be a nice way. But really, does that, which one looks the best? I mean, for me, if you look at this, this looks like what you get out of a book. So I'm going to delete that. I'm just telling you, I'm going to delete that. Now with this now, I can go to insert, I can go to design, I can go to insert, and I can go to call outs. I can bring out a call out, drag this up, and, oh, not drag that up, drag that up. Tell you what, I'm not going to go call outs because that's actually not doing its job. Brilliant. So what I can do is go home and I'm just going to put on normal drawings. So I'll do a line, I can go there, and then I can go to text. Whoops, not on that. It's not what I'm after. I'm after text here. And I'll go top. Keep in mind of the sizing that we're looking at. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to bring that up to, I'm actually going to go massive. You may have to jiggery poke this thing around, but I'm going to go massive like that. And then if I drag that down, right click, I'm going to group all that together to make it into one image like that. And then I'll go File, Save As, whoa, no, Browse, Desktop. And I'd always recommend saving the Visio drawing so you can come back to it. But for this, I'm going to export it as an enhanced meta file. And then watch this. So I bring this back and I'm going to go Insert, Picture from Desktop. And I'm going to go Meta File. And look at that. That is stunning, is it not? You imagine that appearing on a poster. That, I mean, yeah, I'm not to kiss my own arse a little bit, but that is very much what you'd look for. Still convinced this needs to be removed because if you think about it, what we've got here is we've got the setup, we've got some theory to support. Really here, I'm going to have to bring in a title, and this is going to be design. staying to the same font that I was talking about, so I've got 26 on here. This goes into design. Again, I could just do a little bit of introduction for it, so I'll go into design. Whichever one really. I just wanted to show you the way for creating these types of images. So let's just, I'll put that there. So my design goes here. I have seen posters where the actual poster was just on the image and all the text, all the context stayed central, where you've got a call out for each one, and this became the subtitle to what it was talking about. Arguably, theory wasn't on there, but it just depends what you're doing. It depends what the context would be. So I get the design, and then more importantly now we're going to move to our results. With the results, don't forget that you understand what happened. You get everything that happened. Some people may not get everything that happened. So for example, if I just drag and drop this in here, and then I drag and drop this in here, what it does is it may not help. It may need further modification to it. It may need a little bit of context to support it. You may need to add, I mean, don't be afraid of adding arrows. Don't be afraid of simplifying to many ways, or literally explaining key points, key things about it. Don't be afraid to put things on there to explain what really has happened there. I'm not going to do that just because it's going to just digress from what I'm talking about. I mean, with this, for example, I've used back and front to display in the paper the details of it. But arguably, could that not just be one? I would say yes, it could be. Could be just one. So then that says, right, if I bring that from there to there, what's important with this is a multiphysics example. So this has been done in two different simulations which are being brought together as one final solution. And the only real way that you're going to get this is... Oh, it's going to bug me. Even though I'm not making it, it's going to bug me. The only way that you can really tie this in is if it's introduced correctly. So think about how these are actually going to be displayed. Interestingly, these are just the overall stresses of the results. Now, with my work, what I wanted to be able to do is explain some of the other things that we're looking at. So, for example, I might want to explain this. Now, this is the stress around this particular hole. This, arguably, does it really need to be there? Possibly not. Only because this was a means to make sure that this component would not fail. The biggest interest on this is here. The other thing about this work is these lines up here are actually natural. So they're rubber. So my theory, for example, I do need to put in a little bit about how the natural has been hyperelastically modelled, just to show that it's there. This is the stress. So again, what I would always recommend is that you choose your results wisely. So any results that you're reporting on, make sure that you just put them in bullet points. Don't go too far with it. Now, to show you this, here was a test of head muscle. If the head is at quite a lot of strength and it can support a lot, but it needs a little bit of assistance at 2 newtons. This is the displacement of a 3D printed material. Practically nothing. It's practically at a micron of difference. However, at 20 newtons, it's far greater. Now, I decided to just study 2 newtons under physical real testing and non-testing. So if I copy this and paste it across, These then become my key elements. Arguably, do I need these here? What I'll do for the minute is I'm going to put them out. I don't think I need them at the minute. The most interesting data on this is my graphs, not pretty pictures. Because interestingly, between this and this actually tells you more. You could explain that if you came back to here, you could explain the connectors, you could explain about how this was tested and this was tested, and this is the result that you're getting between that interface hole. The other thing as well is I could put it here, bullet points down here. It just needs to be consistent. You must ensure that anything that you introduce is consistent. So I'll bring that in again, and then what I've got is the first real initials onto there. I can explain about this, and again with bullet points. So this would be results. And then I might want to bring in conclusion at the end. So let's go. Bring that down, bring that down, bring that down, bring that down, and go conclusion. A little bit on the conclusion, and if you look here on the design, this is what I meant. If you look now, I've actually got too much in there. Arguably way too much. So this makes you think, okay, what if then this setup is then combined? If I could combine the data about this and this into here, or this is dropped completely and the muscles are put into bullet points, that would bring all this up and give me more space. So then from there, at the bottom of here, you will need to put in referencing. Any types of things, put referencing at footnotes at the bottom of here. I recommend that you put in a text box. So I'm going to draw a text box, and I'm just going to add it in. Something like that. And then I can add my referencing in there. The argument is here, am I using, could this not be detailed in bullet points? Probably. 3 bullet points. Is the height, so the height is between both, so that can be, that technically can be removed. You could actually summarize the muscle groups itself and say that they're ranged between 20 to 130 newtons. This would then promote discussion, people asking you why. When it comes to the title, if again, I'll go insert text box, I'll go, oh no, in fact, I think we've already put it, whoops, I think we've already put a title in here. So, in the title, if I use a ridiculously long sentence, and then this needs to be titled, so it will be bigger than 26, which is our 28, sorry. So it's going to be 2 times bigger. So we start with 24, end tiles are there. I'll go 36. Now you see this break off here. This breakaway is not good. So what I'm going to do is the use of. So I'm going to 3D printed components for exoskeleton. So I'm going to remove that. And 3D printed components for rehabilitation. Well, we'll go the study of. with that, could do with some authors. So I'm going to come down. Yes, it's me. I'm going to go with authors. Now you see there, I've gone with the wrong already. In fact, on both of these, I've gone with the wrong. Need to stay with my consistent option that we're using. So I'll go on here. And really, we do need an abstract as well. Now, any abstracts that we put onto it need to be quite small, but that is really down to what you'd like to do. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is, because I'm just pulling up this work that I've been working on. Do not go crazy with the font. You notice I've gone with 2. 2's at a push. Yeah, try to not go crazy with it. Now, you'll notice what I've also got on here is a lot of white space, a lot of area that's not been filled. I'm only just reiterating this. Please don't be afraid of leaving space. That rule of thumb I talked about earlier, I'm just reminding you, just because I can't remember if I did actually mention it. That rule of thumb is 40%. They reckon at least 40% of the poster should remain blank. Now, the other thing is when you're actually displaying this, try to stay away from dark colours. Now you notice in here I've got colours on here, I've got colours here. Try to stay with only 3 to 5 colours. And for the love of God, don't make them bright yellow. Don't make them like something that came out of the 70s. Make the colours something that that is professional. Pastels can be quite good. You just choose what would be the best one. Don't go with patterns. So if I cover this in a pattern, it will be distracting. People won't like that. Go with consistent colours. And so what I'll do is I'm going to add some colour into it. So let's have a look what we got. No, now, this is a common one as well. Putting shadows onto it doesn't look the best. Strong, hard colours, but not colours that will blow your head off, are the best way of doing it. So do not do that. So look at the text box. What we're going to do is... Oh, look at that. I knew it was somewhere. See, it's here. Columns. You can break it into 2, 3 columns. And I've actually manually done it. I knew it was there somewhere. Anyway, we can go border. And let's just take a look at it with a border. Really, I'd like to have a border all the way around here. So what I'll perhaps do, in fact, what I want perhaps do is now that I'm actually here, I could break this into separates. I could make my background different. So let me go to the home. Again, I don't want to go with colours that are too outrageous. Fading is not so bad. Blue is it's a little bit dull, you know. So I'm going to go with a solid colour. I really want something that's just a little bit more pastel, if you will. But I'll go with this for a second, and then oh hell no, not that. So you see up here I've got colour types. So let's go drag into here, and then I'll go background. No, we need to stay with that 3 to 4 colours. Interestingly, you'll notice on Microsoft, when you actually look, all these colours reframe to one. Well, they reframe to 4 colours. So that 3 to 5 colours we were talking about, this is almost complementing what we were talking about. Now, I'm a big sucker for blue. So let's take a look. come onto there. It's a good start. I could make changes to that again. I'd like to make changes to that again. I could make it a little better, and also I can put more particular colours into that, a little bit more attractive onto that. Now you see that here as well. This is a template example that people talked about, and this one's a good one. So you've got the small abstract here, you've got your subtitle here, you've got your introductions here, and you've got sectional headings. This is broken into 3, so I could break that into 3. You don't have to stay in this orientation. You could do landscape orientation. It just depends on how you want to display what you're talking about. This now roughly gets my foundations of things into position. Again, some things to keep in mind are, so as a reflection, first, cut down your text. Bullet points, justify your text from the left. Always makes the text easier to read. It's just a natural thing. Always keep in mind, pictures paint 1,000 words, and they will prompt discussion. They will allow people to actually think about what it is that you're trying to do. Telling a story. Make sure that when people read it, there is a natural flow to it. You don't have to follow what I've just done here. You can you can go any which way that you like. If you like the idea of call-outs for a design you've been working on, put the call-outs on and let it flow around. But make sure there is a flow that follows it. Let your text breathe as such. Don't be afraid to leave white spaces. If you a lot of people can tend to fill in every single millimeter of white space with text, colour, or drawings, or a stamp. Don't do that. That is just cluttering, and it looks awful. It looks mad. Like I said, the rule of thumb with this is that they reckon. I mean, 40% of your poster should actually be just blank. So keep that in mind. Choosing colours. Now, when you're choosing colours, again, go with 3 to 5. Don't go with only operate within 3 to 5. Sorry. Don't go with something that's absolutely outrageous. Don't go with bright yellow with polka dots. I can guarantee you people will not like it, and they'll just think it's awful. In backgrounds, do not go with patterns. So on here, for example, don't make it look like wood, just because it can be seen as quite distracting. Don't go with darks. I would never recommend a black poster. Try to keep with white on your internals here. One, because it looks good, but at the same time it's easy to print, and it's less costing. I mean, here, as far as I understand, any posters that we did, we always printed them. But you will be in a position where if you're talking about your work at a conference, anywhere in the world, you may need to be able to relate this, and you may need to be able to keep your budget down. So, size in this case really does matter. Keep in mind, somebody would need to be stood around 6 feet away and still be able to see what it is that you're talking about. A good rule of thumb is to use 24 point and no smaller. Don't go crazy with font. I mean, I've been very brave there by using 2. I used Arial for the titles, and I use Times Roman for the main text. Don't go crazy with it. Don't change it to... Oh yeah, and Comic Sans. Never, ever use Comic Sans for something like this. People will look and they will not be happy with it. Go with particular font, which I don't know how to really describe it, to be honest. But go with font that really gives it that professional look. Everybody knows that you've either seen it in Arial or you tend to see it in Times Roman. So keep that in mind. Think of a concise title. Don't let your title go more than one line. If your title goes more than one line, again, people look and go, it's a bit cramped. So you don't want it to go more than one line. The more concise you can make that title, the better. I mean, don't compromise on what the topic is, but the more concise you can make that title, the better. People will look, and it will drag people in, because they'll look and go, I like that. One of the most important things about a poster title is that you're going to get people walking around. So let's say we're at a conference, let's say you're at the expo, you're going to get people walking around looking at different stuff, and really, I mean, I've done this myself. You'll go to a poster and go, this is really interesting, and what you'll do is you'll see if there is presentations to support it. Just because it's right up their field, it will drag people in straight away. When it comes to graphs and figures, don't be afraid to simplify your graphs. Now, I know some of you may, I mean, for example, some students in the past looked at operations management examples. Now, it's not my field. If you just put a graph straight on there and people aren't really sure and it's not really what they do, try to help them along a little bit. Give them, don't be afraid of putting arrows in. This is where the stress is, or this is what stress, this is, just to really complement their skill sets, but also dragging them into your work as well, because you may end up with somebody who genuinely is interested and wants to assist in some way or another. You could, so like for here, for example, if I bring this down, I could do a summary of figures. So for example, I've thrown that in there. If I remove that and then bring this in, now arguably on here this is dress, this is displacement, but what this allows to do is I can even perhaps put these side by side, or I could not do that entirely at all. I can actually remove these out, do away with them for good, and actually just bring in, I've just realised, and just bring in that, and then push this here. Put these into one image, or top and bottom, something like that, just so it's still visible, but produce a small summary of figures, and that would really help. But the most important thing with it is actually your presentation. You've got to remember, you can have the world's best presentation, you can have the world's best poster, sorry, you can have the world's best poster, but if you cannot support what you're talking about in your poster, it's not good. So you must keep in mind that all this is really good, and this will only ever be a tool to help you explain what you've been doing. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind about being concise. Don't overclutter. Arguably here, this should be slimmed down. I should actually rewrite this to one sentence. Don't put four in is at a push. I could actually just keep it down to there. Drop it to many researchers. Because developers, does that really add anything to it? Not really. So that's something else I could do. But my point is that keep it concise. Try and get a flow with it. Now the one thing with this, for example, is could I not delete that out completely? Bring, let me go to here, bring that up. Let's say we have a couple of bullet points in there. So if I did bullet points, so I stuck some bullet points in there. That could be the muscle groups I talk about. And then I could bring this up. Whoops. I could bring this to sit, I don't know, here. And then what I'm able to do is bring this up to here, and then bring my theory up as well. And then perhaps I could bring this down, drop this into small design or something like that. Because don't forget, it is a picture, but again, it paints, the picture paints 1,000 words. Then what I'm able to do is bring that up to there, like that. I could put in conclusion, and further work. Now the one thing to keep in mind, just before I forget, the one thing to keep in mind, or I could also do references. One thing to keep in mind with conclusion and further work. Conclusion is what you think you found. What you're coming away, and with your academic excellence, you're coming away and saying, this is what we think we found. And, oh, sorry, that's discussion. Sorry. So, discussion. Conclusion. So, a discussion, again, discussion is what you think you've found. Conclusion is what you know for a fact has happened. Now, in my conclusion, my discussion is this elastication on here could be down. This may be skewed because what's assumed is that the interlayer boundaries are actually locking a lot greater, so that they're negligible and that they don't exist. This again here, what I know is what my discussion would suggest is that is why this large area here has emerged. This micron here has emerged. That because I neglected the interboundary layers, that is what's given me this huge offset. However, the curve still suits, and that micron still allows me to have a lot more comfort in what I'm doing. The conclusion of this is that I am actually moving in the correct direction. I'm well within my Young's modulus. I'm well within the operational regime. Interestingly, the actual structure itself, the connector operates a lot higher than what was expected. And this is not just really aimed at children, but more at mid to aged weighted adults. So that's where my conclusion will come in, and my references on this will be where all these texts have come from. And that would really set up a nice poster. I hope that you found a benefit with this. Apologies for it being so late. Again, it's been an interesting week so far, just adapting to it all. If there is any questions, please get in touch, drop me a line, and I'm more than happy to help. But again, keep them rules of thumb in mind. I mean, not rules of thumb, keep them rules in mind that, so cut down your text, tell a good story, let your text breathe, choose the right colours. Size does matter, don't go crazy with text. Think concise. Text, titles, everything must be concise. Don't be afraid to refigure all of your figures for assistance, and that will set you up a good poster. So I'd ask the questions, but this is a recording. So again, get in touch, drop me a line, and I'll be glad to help you out as much as possible. If not, good luck, and I will speak to you all soon.